Hello, and what I'm going to take a look at today is how we can store data generated from Technoline Mobile Alerts sensors, and how we can store that data for historical recording in a spreadsheet which is available to store online. Okay, so the reason I'm going to do this little video is because batterylogic.co.uk, UK specialists in mobile alerts system, and within the system there are many sensors available. All of the sensors, of course, producing data. Much of the data is visible within the app, but there's quite often a requirement to store data for historical purposes in maybe a spreadsheet where it's nice and easy to store that data and retrieve it at a later date. Now, many of the sensors we use are temperature sensors, temperature and humidity sensors, which are used extensively in catering, food, for recording temperatures in maybe chiller cabinets, chiller rooms, freezers. It can be used, say, for food and catering. It might be medical supplies. There are many reasons why you may want to record temperatures over time, sometimes for regulatory reasons. So what I'm going to show you today is how we can store this information and store it in a spreadsheet. Now, there's a few things we're going to need. First thing we're going to need is to take a look at Conrad Connect. Conrad Connect offers a platform for connecting all manner of devices in what we call the Internet of Things. And there are many devices, apps and services that are available that we can connect up via the this Conrad Connect system. Okay, and one of those is mobile alerts. As you can see here, look, there's lots of household names there that we can work with: Spotify, Garmin, Amazon Echo, Honeywell, Nest, Google Assistant, Fitbit. The list goes on. As it says here, over 3,000 devices, apps and services, and it's ever growing. But today, all we're going to take a look at is mobile alerts. Once you're on Conrad Connect, you can have a look around and see what's what. But as I say, today we're just going to be taking a look at what we can do with mobile alerts. Okay, the other thing you're going to need is a Google email account. So if you've already got a Gmail account, you can use that. If not, you take yourself over to gmail.com and you will need to set yourself up a free email account. The reason we need that is because if you've got a free email account with Google, like a Gmail account, you will automatically get free access to the Google Drive, which is cloud-based file storage. You also get access to the Google suite of documents. Included in that is Google Sheets, which is their spreadsheet application. So that's where we're going to store the data. Okay, so that's why you're going to need a Gmail account, and Conrad Connect is where we're going to perform the magic. So you're going to need to sign up for a free account with Conrad Connect. It's very, very simple to sign up. It'll only take you less than a minute. All you need to do is provide an email address and create your own password. If you like, you can if you've already got a Google account, you can register with Google, you can register with Facebook, or that's what many users will do, just create a standalone account. Okay, now to register, all you need is an email address, and then you'll just create a password. Now, the reason you need an email address, it can be any email address. It does not have to be a Gmail account. It can be any email address. It needs to be a live email address, because once you do sign up, you are going to receive a confirmation email, which you need to action just to confirm the account that you've set up. Okay, I've already done this, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in. When you are setting up, as I say, any email address, password of your choosing, confirm the password. You need to agree to the terms of service. It's all clearly displayed there. You can read through there. You can opt to receive optional product updates from Conrad Connect when new devices are made available. Some users may find it interesting, others not. It's up to you if you want to receive them. or if you don't. Okay, we've already registered, so I'm just going to go ahead here and sign in with our account details. Okay, so here we go, we're signed in. Welcome back. This is our user account that we're using today. If you're new, of course, it's just going to say welcome, not welcome back. And here we are. Initially, it may look quite daunting. There's maybe functionality and terminology you're not familiar with, but don't be overawed by it. It's all quite straightforward. You can have a good look around at your leisure. There's nothing you can break. You maybe confuse yourself, but it's relatively straightforward. But I'm going to leave you to do that in your own time. What we're going to actually look at today is just what you need to set up recording data from your mobile alerts sensors straight into a spreadsheet. So we're going to go up here and look at the section for devices and apps. This is the first place we need to go to start. So what we need to do up here, it says my connected devices and apps. Okay, at the moment we've got none connected, well, because we just started. We've got some demo sensors here from Conrad Connect. They just call it the CC demo sensors, Conrad Connect demo sensors. You can have a play with that even before you've got any mobile alert sensors, if you so wish, but we'll assume that you're here already because you've already got your mobile alerts gateway and sensors. So we're just going to concentrate and focus on setting up mobile alerts with Google Sheets. So if we come up here, it's all devices and apps, it's what's selected. So if we scroll down, you'll start to see devices you can connect. Okay, things like the Amazon Echo, Raspberry Pis, etc, etc, etc. It's all in alphabetical order. We're just going to scroll down, and we're going to find mobile alerts. There we go. Okay, so we're going to need to connect to mobile alerts. So I'll just click on connect there. And it's going to ask us, first thing it's going to ask us for is a phone ID. Now, a phone ID is a unique identifier which is within every installation of the app. So you've got the app on your smartphone or your tablet, and within the app it's got a unique phone ID. So there's one piece of information we're going to need to get. We'll get that from the app. So just stop here for a moment. We'll go over. I'll do a quick screen record from a mobile device to show you where you can find that, and then we'll come back here once we've got that information. Okay. So one of the things we're going to need to do now is get the phone ID from within the app. Every installation of the app on every device will have a unique phone ID, and it's important that we get this phone ID and offer that up to Conrad Connect so that the data from the sensors associated with your app can become visible within Conrad Connect. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to do. We need to find the phone ID. Very straightforward. I'll show you how to do that. And the other thing we need to do is enable the app to pass the data through to Conrad Connect. Okay, so I'm in the dashboard at the moment. So if you look down the bottom of the screen, in the middle we've got the setting button. I'm just going to touch on settings, and we're going to go and find the phone ID. So if you scroll down towards the bottom of the page, you will find the phone ID. This here, phone ID, see at the bottom of this screen, it's 12-digit code, which is unique, as I say, to every installation of the app. So that's the phone ID. That's the first thing we're going to need. The other thing we're going to need to do is enable the app to forward data to Conrad Connect. So if you look in the middle of the screen here now, where it says forward data, it says Conrad Connect, and it's checked. And below that it says transfer data to Conrad Connect. Now by default this is unchecked. Now if you're not aware of this setting and you haven't set this to forward the data to Conrad Connect, you will never see any sensor data within Conrad Connect, and we will not be able to do what I'm trying to show you now. Okay, so we need to check that where it says Conrad Connect. Okay, when we do check it, some information explaining what's going on will come up. But in the top left hand corner of the screen you've got the little back arrow button. Just press that and it will take you through. So that's done. Okay, so now you can see it says forward data, there's a heading, Conrad Connect, the checkbox is checked, and now it will transfer data to Conrad Connect. Okay, so by default, as I say, that is unchecked, so you must ensure that that is checked before we go any further. Okay, right, so we've set that to forward data. We've identified the phone ID, which you can just see again here at the bottom of the page. That's all we need to know. We can now move on and continue configuring Conrad Connect. Okay, so now that I've shown you where you can find the phone ID, I'm just going to pop the phone ID in here and we'll authenticate. So all that's going to do is going to pull in the sensor data from the sensors you've already got associated with your app. Okay, so I'm just going to click refresh, and there we go. If I scroll down here now, look at devices and apps, you'll see that we've got a mobile alerts set up. The next thing we need to do, we need to connect to Google Sheets, which is in the app. So we're just going to scroll down. This is the devices to connect. Just going to scroll down past the devices to the apps to connect, and we've got Google Sheets. Going to connect to Google Sheets. First thing it's going to ask us is to authenticate. So we're just going to authenticate it with our Gmail username and password, and that is going to give us access to Google Docs, specifically the Google spreadsheets. Okay, so I'm just going to authenticate. It's going to ask me to choose an account. So that's the Gmail account we set up specifically for this. Just popped in the password, and away we go. So it's just going to confirm here, Conrad Connect wants to access your Google account. Well, it does need to do that because Conrad Connect needs to be able to pop the data into the spreadsheet within your Google account. Now, some users, if you're already a heavy user of Gmail, using it regularly, you may like to just set up a separate Gmail account specifically for this. Okay, it's entirely up to you, but you do need to grant access to Conrad Connect to your Google account. Without that, it simply can't pop the data into the spreadsheet. Okay, so we're going to allow that. Okay, now then, what we can see down here is connected the Google Drive. Okay, I'm going to quickly refresh that, and now I'm going to pop back up here to devices and apps, and now you can see my connected devices and apps. It's showing us mobile alerts and Google Sheets. Great, so that's exactly the information we need. Now then, now that we've got that side of things set up, we can go straight on and create our first project. So up the top here, just click on the projects menu heading. Over here we've got new project, and there we are. This is the canvas where we're going to create our projects. This is just a little explainer. The first time you use it, you can just hide this info. Click up here, hide this info. Now then, on the left hand side we've got the sensors. I should have maybe showed you this before we added in the mobile alerts, which you are now seeing here under the sensors, and down here under the actuators you're now seeing Google, and if we click through in there, this is Google Sheets. So that's ready to go. Up here we've got the sensors, got the mobile alerts. If we click through there, we can now see the sensors that are within the app on the on your smart device. Okay, so here I've got three sensors. One's a contact sensor. I've got two temperature sensors. One's just being used in a fish tank, and one's being used in a freezer. Okay, and down here, so we've got the Google Sheets. So to create a project, we just need to pull the sensors onto the worksheet. So not the worksheet, sorry, the workspace here. So let's go for the freezer temperature. So it's a temperature sensor which is currently in a freezer. Okay, we're also going to want to pull on the Google Sheets because that's where we're going to pop the data generated by the sensors. Okay, and then we're going to make an association between the sensor and the worksheet, or the spreadsheet should I say. Now, for all temperature sensors, there are two pieces of information we need to add in. One is a lower bound, one is an upper bound. Now that's going to make sense when you look at the states that are available from the sensor. It's going to be in range, so it's going to be between the lower and upper bounds. It's going to be below the lower bound or above the upper bound. Okay, so this is being used in a freezer, so let me give you an example. Lower bound, how cold? Let's just say, look, minus 25. Upper bound, let's say we don't want it to go much above minus 15. This can be any value you like. Okay, so there's going to be different sensors going to be used for different things, but generally speaking, all temperature sensors you will need an upper and a lower bound. Okay, so because this is being used in a freezer, these are the figures I'm using. You can change these at a later date. It can be anything you like, but this will make sense, and this is will be quite pertinent for a freezer. So, got a lower bound, upper bound. The parameter is the temperature, and the states are going to be the temperature is either going to be within range that we've set here. It's going to be below that or above that. Now, if I just click up here and test, what that's going to do is going to try and make a connection with that sensor and get some data. So here we go. I'm going to click test. There we go. It's come back and it said the result is within range. So here's the temperature. It's minus 18.6 degrees in the freezer at the moment. The upper bound is minus 15. That's what I set myself over here. The lower bound is minus 25. So of course it's within that range. So the result is in range. So as I say, these are the states: in range, below, and above. We'll come back to that if we need to, but hopefully that makes sense. Let's now look at the Google Sheets. This is where the fun starts happening. Okay, so I'm going to just click on Google Sheets. Four pieces of information: the spreadsheet name, the worksheet name, the column name, and the message. Okay, let me explain what's going on here. The spreadsheet is going to be the name of the spreadsheet. We don't have to put any paths or locations for it because it's in your Google Drive. Okay, so that's all we need to know. So we'll just give it a name. So for the name of the spreadsheet, if the spreadsheet already exists, it will go and try and find that. So let's put demo spreadsheet. Okay, the worksheet, let's just call it demo worksheet. Columns, this is going to be the column name that appears within the worksheet. Because it's a temperature sensor, we'll just start with one column and we'll call it temp, okay, because it's going to be measuring temperature. So just a quick recap here: the name of the spreadsheet, we don't need any file extensions, we don't need any paths to it, it's all within the drive, it's a spreadsheet, so all we need is the name. If the spreadsheet exists, it will open it and use that. If it doesn't, it will create a new one. Worksheet, again, if this worksheet that we've popped in here, the name demo worksheet, exists within the spreadsheet, it will use that. If not, it will create it. Columns, these are the column names, and now this is the data we're going to use. Now I think this is probably a little confusingly named, this message. What message is going to be is the data that is going to be popped into this column within this worksheet. So every time we go over here, you'll notice it turns grey. There's a little icon in the middle there. Let's just go and click in there and I'll explain what's happening there. Because in the project we've got one temperature sensor, which is actually called freezer temperature here. You'll notice when it names it, it's naming it freezer underscore temperature underscore 1. Okay. if I click down here and select a field, you'll see that this is the available field data from the freezer temperature sensor 1, okay, which is what it's been called. So what I'm interested in initially is the parameter. As we said, the parameter is going to be the temperature, so I'm just going to select that and add it. Now it's created this line of code here. Okay, this is not too important at this point, but what I will initially point out, and I'll come back to it later, is just notice that it's taken the name of the sensor, it's closed that within 2 square brackets. I don't know if you can see them there, one opening square bracket, one closing square bracket. At either side of the whole line you've got 2 curly brackets opening this end, 2 curly brackets closing that end. As I say, that's not important, we haven't had to type that, it's generated that for us, but it's just worth noting those at this point, and we'll come back to that later. So I'm going to click apply, and it's popped it here down here. As I say, it's called message, but what this is the data that's going to appear in this column. So if I click test, what it's going to do, it's going to try to connect into the spreadsheet and try and pop some data into that worksheet, that column. So it's just come back and said result okay. So at this stage, look, why don't we go into Gmail. So we'll just log on to Gmail account. If you're already using Google Drive, you'll be familiar with it. If you're not, you may just be using Gmail as your Gmail account. But if you look up here in the top right hand corner, if you look at this icon here, which is a square full of dots, if you just click on there, one of the options is Drive. Of course, it's Google Drive, and this is exactly what we want. So we're just going to click on Drive, take us into Google Drive. And here we have, I'm just going to remove that. Here we have the spreadsheet we've created, demo spreadsheet. Okay, so if I open up the spreadsheet, just double click on it. Here is the spreadsheet. So you can see up the top here, it's called demo spreadsheet, which is the name we gave it. It's created a worksheet called demo worksheet, and it's created a column called temp. You'll notice that the entry is date and time stamped. This is automatic, you don't have to specify date or time, that happens automatically. Every entry is date and time stamped, and you'll notice that in the temperature field it's put a 0. So let's just look at that again. We asked for it to be called demo spreadsheet, the worksheet to be called demo worksheet, the column to be called temp, and pop the temperature in there. Okay, so if we just go back here, you can see that here, spreadsheet name, demo spreadsheet, worksheet, demo worksheet, column, temperature. And here is the little line of code which was generated earlier, which is essentially the name of the sensor and the data field that we're interested. We've selected the parameter. Okay. We scroll down a little bit further. We've got trigger on states. So what this is going to do, remember we looked at states in here and we created an upper and a lower bound, and we did say you can come back and change this at any time, you can set it however you like. Just for this demonstration I've used -25 and -15, and the states are in range, below and above. We go back to Google Sheets, we can say only pop the data in the spreadsheet if the data was within range. Okay, or we could say only put the data in the spreadsheet if it's below. Okay, so we could delete range if we wanted and just have below. We could have if it was above and below. But for this demonstration we're going to say trigger on states, in range, above and below. So all the data that's produced is either going to be within range, above or below, so it's going to record everything to start with. Another little piece of information or setting which might be useful. I can just adjust the screen so we can see it all here. Is limits to, by default it's going to say always, so all the time it's going to be, any data is generated, it's going to be popped through. Or you might want to say just do it once per day, once per hour, or only once. Now the reason once per hour might be useful is if you've got something like a freezer, there's maybe no real change in the temperature, so you might be perfectly happy to say, well, just check it every hour, and every hour it's fine. Or it might be it's something that you want to be checking or recording regularly. It might be opening and closing. It might be more susceptible to temperature changes. You may want to keep a closer eye on it. So you might leave it as default to always. Now, most, if not all, of the temperature sensors within the mobile alerts range available from batterylogic.co.uk will produce some data every 7 minutes. So that's less than 10 an hour. But over time, you may be recording a lot of information that you don't necessarily need. That's something you can change at any time. To start with, we're going to leave that to always. So it's constantly going to be looking at any data that comes across. Okay. Let's save this project up the top here, so we don't lose any of the settings or any of the work we've done so far. So I'm just going to save the project, and I'm going to call it demo sensor. No, let's call it demo data logger. You can put some notes in there for your own reference about the project. I tend to leave that blank. Don't have that many projects on the go at any one time, and normally, you can just have it can be pretty obvious from the name of the project. And down here you've got an option to publish. Now, I would suggest that most of the time you don't want to publish. You just want to keep your projects private. If you've maybe created something wonderful that you maybe want to share with the Conrad Connect community, you can click publish and the project becomes publicly available. But by default, it's private. It's not published, and I would suggest that to start with you leave it that way. So I'm going to save the project. It's going to be called Demo Data Logger. So we go back to home. We look under here, projects. We have one project created, so manage projects. Let's go and have a look at the projects. Top projects this week. This is just top projects within the Conrad community. We're not interested in that at the moment. We're just going to scroll down my projects, and here we go. This is a project we've just created. We saved it as demo data logger. It's going to execute always. This is just a little overview, just showing us which elements are used within the project. So here we're just using mobile alerts and Google Sheets. Okay, at any time we can go in and edit that project, go in, maybe have a look, see what we've done, or maybe make some changes. But hopefully so far so good. Hopefully I've been making sense and you've been following what we've been doing. You can, of course, if you're following the video, you can be stopping as you're going along and going through the various stages, and hopefully it's making sense. I'm going to take a closer look back here at Google Sheets. There's a couple of things I want to point out which can be quite relevant. Initially, look, all we've done here is we are taking one temperature sensor and we're taking one piece of information, which is the temperature, which is reflected in the parameter field, and we're storing that in the worksheet. Now, what we can do is we can add multiple columns. So we might want to have, we might want to record state. So if I look, back here, I might want to record the state as well as the parameter. I might want to add additional fields essentially to the worksheet. So if we want to do that, what we've got to do, we've got to delimit the columns. So essentially what this is saying up here is explaining about the delimiter, defining columns and separating them by the delimiter. So if you imagine you've got a row of fence panels. The fence panels are the data, and the fence posts are the delimiters. Okay, so we've got one piece of data, and then we've got to delimit it. Now, up here, what this is essentially saying, I'm going to explain it because it might not be initially clear, is that the delimiter is 3 vertical straight lines. Now, if you look on your keyboard, every keyboard will have one of the keys will be a vertical straight line. Now, on many keyboards, it's not clear, and sometimes it can be a broken line. It could be anything. But if you start looking around your keyboard, you will find it. Now, I'm not going to tell you where it is because it could be in different places, but it will exist on your keyboard, and especially if you're in different regions, everyone's keyboard is going to be different. So, maybe a cup of tea, and you can drive yourself mad for 5 minutes with combinations of shift keys, etc., to find that vertical straight line. Once you found it, you'll know where it is, and it'll be in the same place next time. But there you go. Look, I can't change that. That is the delimiter. It's 3 straight lines. Now, it's not a capital I. It's not a lowercase l. It's not a number 1. It is a vertical straight line, and it does exist on your keyboard. Okay, so you can drive yourself mad trying to find that. If you can't find it, you can maybe cheat if you come in here and just highlight these 3 lines, copy them, and paste them in. Okay, of course, do it without the surrounding speech marks. So I'm going to create another field, and I'm going to call it state. You can see I've done this previously, so I'm just going to click in there. So I'm going to have 2 columns now. If we go back and look in the spreadsheet, we've just got 1 column. As I say, the date and timestamp, that happens automatically. That'll be there where you don't need to do anything. But we've specified 1 column called temp. But now we want 2 columns. In your project, you may want any number of columns appearing in your spreadsheet. Okay, we start with 1. We're just going to add another, and if you follow that logic, you can then add as many as you like at a later date. But let's just show you how we'll just add another one. So we're going to have 2 columns. One's called temp, one's called state. The delimiter is 3 vertical lines. Explained here. As I say, find it on your keyboard. If not, you can copy and paste it from there. Now we're going to come back here. We've created 2 columns now within the worksheet, so now we need to get some more data to put in the other column, the state column. So I'm going to click down here. I'm going to go up to select a field, and I'm going to collect the state field from a freezer temperature sensor, and I'm going to add that to the project. Now, I mentioned before about the way this little line of code is formatted, and I said that there are 2 opening curly brackets, there are 2 closing curly brackets for each piece of data coming from the sensor. So this first one is parameter, the second one is state. So you'll notice again we've got 2 opening curly brackets, 2 closing curly brackets, and then we've got an opening square bracket just before and after the name of the sensor. The reason I'm pointing this out is because if we lose any of these brackets, or if you start manually changing anything and you're missing any of these brackets, it's not going to work. Okay, so we haven't actually had to add any of this code in by hand, so everything should be there, but it's just worth noting that at this stage. So I'm going to click apply. So we've got the 2 columns, temperature and state, delimited here, and we've got the 2 pieces of data. However, it's not explained anywhere, so I'm going to explain this to you now. You also need to put the delimiter between the 2 pieces of data, because if you don't, these 2 pieces of data will appear in the same column. Okay, so if we left it like that, we'd have 2 columns, but in the first column we'd have the parameter and the state. So we're just going to put in between the 2 the delimiter again. Just pasted it in because I copied it earlier. So that's 3 vertical straight lines. So if you look at the information here, we've got the parameter. We start with 2 opening curly brackets, closing 2 curly brackets. The delimiter, then again we're opening 2 curly brackets, closing. We haven't had to type any of this in, but what we do need to add in is this delimiter. Okay, I know I've gone on a little bit about it, but if you miss this point, you will just drive yourself mad. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to click test. As I said before, this is going to connect into the worksheet, and it's going to try to populate these fields with some data. So it's come back and said results okay, so that's looking good. Let's go and look at the spreadsheet, and now you can see this last data entry here. We've got the temperature field, we've got the state field. Okay, both of these are 0. I think, as I said before, every time we press test, it is going to connect into the worksheet. It's going to pop some data in there, but it's not going to be real sensor data. It's just going to put 0 in there. So I'm going to do this. So I've done that once, that's twice. Let's do it a third time. So that will have added another 3 entries into the worksheet, and there they are, like, date and time stamped. But there's no data in there. That's not important. As time goes on, as we said, the temperature sensors will produce a packet of data approximately every 7 minutes, and then when it does do that, there'll be some real temperature and state information there. So just going to save project again, and I think it's maybe time for a quick recap. Okay, so the first time we go into the system, we're going to need to connect mobile alerts to the system, to Conrad Connect, and we're also going to need to connect Google Sheets. So Conrad Connect will now pick up the sensor data from mobile alerts and pop it into Google Sheets. The first time we use mobile alerts, we had to use the phone ID, which we found within the app under the in the settings. So we've got the phone ID, and the first time we connected Google Sheets, we had to associate it with our Gmail account that we'd set up or already were using, so that the data generated from the mobile alert sensors flows through to the spreadsheet contained within the Google Drive. Once that was set up, we went up to projects. We clicked on new project to create a new project. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go back to our existing project, and I'm going to click edit. We created, no, in fact, I'm going to, let's go back, let's quickly do that. Let's create a new project. So we'll go to projects, new project. Okay, so we go up to mobile alerts. We select a temperature sensor. We went down to actuators and we selected Google Sheets. We made an association between the two of them. Oops, didn't grab the right point, there you go. Made an association between the two of them. On a temperature sensor, which is what we're looking at here, you must add a lower bound and an upper bound. So as this is in a freezer, we're going negative with cold temperatures, but of course this is going to be different for everyone else, and you can put in whatever data is relevant for you. The parameters are going to be within range, below or above. We can test it at any time. That's just going to check that we can connect through to the sensor. Here we go, it's minus 17 degrees. It's within the parameters that we set, so it's within range. On the spreadsheet, we're going to give it the name of the spreadsheet. If the spreadsheet already exists, it will open it. If not, it will create it. The same will apply here for the worksheet. If the worksheet exists within the spreadsheet, it will open it. If not, it will create it. In here, we're going to put a column name, and here we're going to select the data that we want to appear in the columns. So let's go back and look at the one we have created. We're just going to go in and edit. Have another, just a quick look down here at Google Sheets. So don't forget the delimiter. The delimiter, 3 vertical straight lines. There will be a key on your keyboard which is 1 vertical straight line. If you can't find it, you can copy and paste. But if you do copy and paste, do not copy and paste the quotation marks either side, just the straight lines. If you're adding additional columns, you're also going to be adding additional data fields. The data fields, you'll just go in and select the ones you want to use. But once you have selected them, don't forget you must delimit them in the same way as you've delimited the columns. If you don't, the 2 pieces of information in this instance will appear in the same column. Okay. Trigger on states, here we've got it set to trigger when it's below the parameters we've set here. Above or in range, we can delete any of those, or we can add. So we can have them all one of them, or I was going to say none of them, but no, you need at least one of them. And you can also say whether you want it to be always once a day, once an hour, or just once. I'm just going to save that again. Right, so I hope that makes sense. It's a great little system, Conrad Connect. It doesn't just work with mobile alerts, it's the Internet of Things, so there's an increasing number of devices there for the smart home, for whatever. It's fantastic if you like that sort of thing. If you're just interested in storing data from mobile alerts sensors, which are, as I say, available from batterylogic.co.uk. This is what all you need to do. So you set yourself up a free Gmail account if you don't already have one. You'll come over to conradconnect.de and you'll set yourself up a free Conrad Connect account, and then hopefully this little tutorial has been useful. As I say, the reason we produce this is over the years we've just been asked hundreds if not thousands of times by customers, how do we do this? So we finally got around to doing a little video explaining how you do that. If you're buying your hardware from us, we'll be quite happy to help in many instances if you're trying to set this up and you get stuck. But as I say, batterylogic.co.uk, UK specialists in Technoline Mobile Alert Systems. In the not too distant future, I'm hoping to come back and expand on some of the extra functionality or additional functionality for maybe more complex projects. But to start with, this is a really good starting point. It should show you everything you need to do to start recording some temperature data as a minimum, but you can come back at a later date and we've got some nice logic gates, times, between hours, days, months, etc., etc. Some of the actuators are also quite interesting. You can get it to generate emails, send text messages, Twitter direct messages on certain criteria. There's all sorts of bits and pieces you can do, but that's probably beyond the scope of today's discussion. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. You can get all the available mobile alert sensors, say, from batterylogic.co.uk. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all again. Thanks for watching.